We're going to look at absolute value and word problems today. So for the warm-up, write the solution and graph each on a number line. So the first one is the absolute value of x minus 1 over 3 is less than 2. So we know that when we're solving absolute value, we have to get the absolute value by itself before we split it up. So first up, we're going to multiply each side by 3. We're going to get the absolute value of x minus 1 is less than 6. Now the absolute value is by itself, so we're going to split it up, and we get x minus 1 equals 6, and x minus 1 can be negative 6. So the inside of the absolute value can be 6 or negative 6. We're going to add 1 to each side, and we get x can be 7, and x can be negative 5. Now if it's less than, we know that's between. So if we graph this, we're going to use an open dot at negative 5 and an open dot at 7. And any number in between will work in this inequality. And if you plug in any number and solve, it'll be less than 2. Okay, the next one is greater than, and there's two numbers to get rid of before we can split it up. So here the first step, we'll subtract 5 from each side. Oh, and over here I should write the solution. This is when x is less than 7, but is greater than negative 5. So here's what the between looks like. You put the x in the middle, the lowest number goes on the left side, and the highest number goes on the right side. So that's your solution here. Okay, so in B right here, we have the absolute value of 2x over 4 is greater than 1. Multiply each side by 4. The 4's cancel here. And so, and I'll write it up here, the absolute value of 2x is greater than 4. Now we split it up. I'm going to erase this. And when we split it up into the plus and minus, here's what it looks like. 2x can be 4, and 2x can be negative 4. And we'll divide each side by 2. And we'll get x is 2, and x is negative 2. And this is when it's greater than, so this is where it's beyond. So I'm going to find negative 2, open dot, and at 2. And it's going to be either smaller than negative 2 or greater than 2. And so when we write the solution, x is going to be less than negative 2, or we can write or x is greater than 2. So we did a between. When it's less than, we did a beyond. In each case, you get the absolute value by itself first and then split it up into the plus minus and you solve. So today's learning target, I can set up and solve absolute value word problems and solve them. So let's take a look at the first one. Mrs. Bajan's car averages 48 miles per gallon in the city. The actual mileage varies at most 5 miles per gallon. Write and solve an absolute value inequality that shows the range for the mileage the car gets and draw it on a number line. All right, so we have our mileage right here, but it can vary. So I'm going to put x minus 48 can vary, and it can vary 5 miles per gallon. So it can be greater than or less than 5. So here's how we're going to set it up. The reason we set it up this way is when we split this up, we have our mileage can vary, so minus 48, and that can vary by positive 5 miles per gallon. And my mileage can vary, so by negative 5. Okay, so it can vary by 5 or negative 5. And if we solve, we're going to add our 48 to each side. Okay, so here, x can be up to 52 miles per gallon is the high end. And then over here, we have x is 43 miles per gallon is the low end. And this is less than, so if we were to graph it, it can be 43, it can be 52, and it can be everything in between. So my car gas mileage can be anything in between these two. So here's where I shade it. All right, let's try the next one. Kayla averages $105 a week working at Holiday. Her actual weekly salary can vary $25 depending on the hours she works. Write and solve an absolute value inequality that shows the range of money she earns per week. Draw it on a number line. So again, if we write this as an inequality, we have our sum amount minus this 105 that she's making is going to vary by $25. And if it's an absolute value, we split it up. We get x minus 105 equals 25, and x minus 105 can be negative 25. We're going to add 105 to each side. All right, so Kayla can earn up to, it looks like $130. And if we subtract, or have negative 25 plus 105, she can earn as little as $80 a week. So again, if we were to graph this, it's going to be between these right here. So she can earn 80, she can earn up to 130, and she can earn everything in between. Okay, a few more word problems, and then we're good to go to practice. Mrs. Bajan's classroom is usually around 68 degrees, but the temperature can vary as much as 7 degrees in the warmer and colder months. Write and solve an absolute value inequality that shows the range of temperatures in my room. All right, so we have x minus the 68 degrees. It can vary 7 degrees. So here's what it looks like. We'll split it up. X minus 68 can be 7. X minus 68 can be negative 7. And then we solve. So we'll add 68. All right, excuse me. So x can be up to 75 degrees. But if we take 60 and subtract 7, the low can be 61. So my range of temperatures, if I were to graph this, 61 is the low end, and 75 is the high end, and it can be anything in between these. A standard NBA basketball has a diameter of 9.43 inches, but they are still used in the NBA if they're within 0.04 inches. What is the range of diameters of basketballs in the NBA? So a diameter is going to be all the way across. So let's write the inequality. So x minus this 9.47 is going to be less than or equal to 0.04. We split it up and solve. So x minus 9.47 equals 0.04, and x minus is going to be equal to negative 0.04. We're going to add 9.47 to each side. Okay, so the first basketball, the high end that the basketball can be 9.51. And the low end that it can be is 9.43. So if a basketball is within these, I can write the inequality like this. 9.43 is the low end, 9.51 is the high end. You can graph it same way. So regulation basketball can be anything in between these numbers. Okay, last one. A poll shows that it is likely that, with a margin of error of plus or minus 2 percentage points, that 57% of those randomly selected from a population would vote for a particular candidate. The following graph models the situation. Write the absolute value inequality that would model the percentage of voters who favor the candidate. All right, so we've got to figure out what the middle is right here, because it goes up 2% and it goes down 2%. So let's just add 2 to this, 55, 56, 57. So 57 is the middle. And it can vary 2 percentage points, so this can be less than or equal to 2 percentage points. And then when you solve this, you'll get 55 and 59. So your assignment will be to practice these word problems, setting them up, and we'll have some review on there as well.